I'll open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you that we can look into your word and study your word and learn from it. We ask that you give us eyes to see, ears to hear, what you would have us see and hear. In Yeshua's name, amen. All right, so we are in Genesis 36, which is the descendants of Esau, but I wasn't going to read the chapter, just more talk about it a little bit, because this kind of closes out Esau's story, the man Esau, not so much the Edomites, but and talks about his descendants, how he had 3 wives: Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite, not Elon Musk, Elon the Hittite; Oholibama, which is an interesting sounding name, Oholibama, daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite; and then Basmat, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebiah, who I believe was the oldest son of Ishmael. So those 3 women, 2 of them are Canaanite women, and the 2 Canaanite women, I gotta plug in my phone. This is the problem, doing it like this. I lose power very rapidly. All right. There we go. Okay, so the 2 daughters, Ada and Oholibama, were Canaanite women. He married when he was like 40. And when we read through the story, we see that he was oblivious to how his parents felt about that. And being a rather worldly person, he didn't really give it much thought. Basmat was, he married after Jacob took the birthright, and where he kind of started figuring out that his parents weren't too pleased with him. So he tried to make amends in somehow, some way, by marrying a woman who was actually in the family, daughter of Ishmael's. So these 3 women, they have 5 sons. Ada has Eliphaz, Basmath has Reuel, and Oholibama has Jeush, Yalam, and Korah. Eliphaz has Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, Ganaz, and Amalek. And you're probably familiar with Amalek. The Amalekites were the tribe of people when the Israelites first came out of Egypt. They attacked the stragglers, and because of that, Yahuwah commanded the Israelites later on to completely wipe them out off the face of the earth. So the Amalekites are actually descended from Esau. And so we won't look too much into this. I just wanted to note that in verse 20, it says these are the sons of Seir the Horite, and it goes over his descendants. So Seir is the name of the land that the Edomites moved to, and it's named after this guy Seir the Horite. So the Edomite people and the Horites they intermingled. So in the line of Edom, there is a lot of Canaanite intermingling. One of the sons of Seir is Zibeon, who it turns out is the father of Anna, who is the father of the one daughter, Oholibama. So,
Can you see that Donnie has his hand up?
oh, go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. What chapter and verse are we in right now?
We are in chapter 36.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'm not going to cover it too much. I mean, I just wanted to point out that the line of Esau became very intermingled with this Canaanite line of the Horites, and also you have the Amalekites in there. So that's pretty much the extent of it. We don't need to go too much into it. Although there's one interesting thing. I noticed that this one guy, Eliphaz, I don't know if this is the same Eliphaz in Job, because one of the friends of Job was Eliphaz, and it says he was a Temite. And actually his son's name is Teman. So I don't really know if that's the same guy. It's just kind of interesting that that name pops up like that. Anybody have any thoughts on that or any ideas? If now we can continue, I will start reading Genesis 37. Verse 1, Jacob lived in the land of his fathers, sojourning in the land of Canaan. So this would have been in the area of Hebron. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to them, to their father. So you kind of get the impression that Joseph, maybe he was kind of the bratty little brother, you know, and he's like ratting on his brothers. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons, because he was the son of his old age. Although I think all of his sons were born in old age, but really Benjamin would have been more likely the son of his old age, because he was born way after Joseph. Anyways, and he made him a robe of many colors. So we've all heard the coat of many colors, the robe, and it's in Hebrew, this word, two words actually, ketanet pasim, and it doesn't necessarily mean, pasim doesn't necessarily mean many colors. It's more like an ornamental robe. It appears one other time in scripture, 2 Samuel 13, 18, and 19, about Tamar, the daughter of David. And in that passage, it's translated as a long robe with sleeves. So anyways, the idea is that it's some kind of garment that signified royalty. And we see where Jacob, like just a few chapters before, he's told that kings will come from you. So maybe he's thinking, well, you know, Joseph is my favorite son. Maybe I'll just make him the first king. And so he makes him this robe, very ornamental robe. And of course, his brothers, they don't like it, you know. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully. to him. So Jacob is, it's not like he's had enough trouble, and he's kind of introducing, more attention into his family. So it gets to the points where his brothers, they don't like Joseph. They don't like being around him. They can't speak nicely to him. And when he shows up, they just don't want to be around him. But this idea that, what do you think Joseph was like? Do you think maybe he was a kind of spoiled, compared to the others, and he kind of got his father, since he was the favorite, he was could do no wrong. Any thoughts on that? Let's see, we got a few more people here.
So when I read about Joseph and then further along, I always see him as a rather confident son,
Right.
who was not afraid to just, I wouldn't say maybe blurt out is the wrong language, but you know how sometimes it's better not to say something than to say it.
Right.
But he didn't really seem to have that filter or problem. I think he's just like, hey, I had this dream and I'm going to tell you. And
Right.
it's not like
we haven't got to the dream yet. But
he wasn't interpreting his dreams to his brothers. They were just like reading it and going, wait a minute, you're talking about that you're going to be over us? He didn't even have to say anything. So I don't know if he was really, I just think he was very confident in what he was doing. And he really believed what the visions he was getting. And he did never let his brother's ire, prevent him from just talking when he wanted to.
Right. Well, I'm not doubting that he was very confident. I mean, we actually see that when he was introduced to Esau. But I think the point I'm trying to get at is, why is he telling on his brothers? Why is he not, encouraging them and lifting them up? It just says he came to his father with that's like all he did was like bring bad reports to his father about his brothers. And naturally, if you're gonna do that, you're not gonna be well liked. And that's all I'm trying to say. I don't doubt that he was very confident. But any other thoughts? Okay.
I think Donnie's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Donnie.
Okay, so can you hear me? It's me.
Yeah, Lisa.
Hey, me.
Hey, me. So I've been really, I don't know if this will lend a little bit more information, but I've been reading Elijah the prophet in the book of the Order, and it does speak of Joseph being, let me just read this. It says, this priesthood came down to me from the fathers by lineage. So this is being written by Elijah the prophet. For I am a descendant of Joshua, the son of Nun, who was descended from Ephraim, the son of Joseph, through whom the rights of the firstborn descended in Israel. So I don't know if that has something to do with perhaps Joseph being favored. It looks like he had the firstborn, I guess he was looked at as the firstborn. Now, I don't know whether that was because he was more righteous or because he was more obedient, or maybe there's something more to Joseph just being the favored in Israel's eyes or Yaakov's eyes. Maybe there's some sort of prophetic weightiness. I don't know.
Well, I would agree with that, because when Reuben basically disinherited himself by sleeping with his father's concubine, the birthright was taken away from him. And usually you would think, well, if Reuben's the oldest born, then wouldn't it go to Simeon, Levi, Judah? But it went to Reuben is the oldest son of Leah. Joseph is the oldest son of Rachel, the favorite wife. And I think possibly he was a favorite of Jacob's because he was the one who was most interested in learning, probably. You think? But you,
Yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned that Elijah
Mm-hmm.
was from the tribe of Ephraim.
It says, oh no, he was talking about Joshua, the son of Nun, who was
Oh
descended
yeah,
from
he was an
Ephraim.
Ephraim.
Yes, he was
I
an
don't think
Ephraim.
Elijah was.
No, it doesn't say. It's written by Elijah about Joshua
Oh, okay.
and
Oh,
where
okay.
the priesthood is coming down from. But
Right.
yeah, I always wondered about that. Out of all the 12 sons, why is Joseph so much more favored? I think
Yeah.
it's more than just Jacob loving Rachel. I don't know. Something tells me there's just a little bit more to that. So I just wanted to read that because
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
That's interesting. So now we get to the dream. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf rose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. So he has these dreams, and yes, I agree. He speaks of his dreams confidently, and we'll see later in the story how his dreams, he's given this gift of having dreams and being able to interpret. And but his brothers just hate him even more. Verse 9, then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, and his father kept the saying in mind. So even though Jacob rebuked him, he thought about what he said, and he kept it in his mind and in his heart. And that was something that possibly when Joseph was gone, maybe that was something he clung to all those years to keep himself going. So these dreams are pretty interesting, and that he has them, and yeah, he feels no compunction about telling his brothers his dreams. Maybe a part of his confidence comes across as cockiness, which happens a lot of times. People who are good at things, might have cockiness about them, and his brothers resent this, and they're to the point now where, I mean, they hate him so much they don't want to even be around him. So moving on, verse 12. Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he said to them, "Here I am." So he said to him, "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring me word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem, which is a pretty good hike. And a man found him wandering in the fields. And the man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I'm seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him in one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." So that's a pretty ruthless plan they got going there. But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to him, "Shed no blood, throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father." So Reuben's the one who steps up, which is interesting in that he's the one you would almost think would be the most resentful of Joseph, seeing how he's lost the birthright and it's going to Joseph. But he steps up and wants to, he speaks up and tells his brothers not to shed blood, so that he has a plan. He wants to go back and rescue him out of the pit and bring him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore. And they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. And looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. And they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes. So, I asked the question, where was Reuben when all this was going on? I mean, he's the one who spoke up to spare his life, but when the band of Ishmaelites come through, apparently Reuben, he's not even there. So I guess I've wondered, like, so what was he doing? Where was he going? That was so, where did he have to be? That was so important. They're out in the field tending sheep, and so I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I figured he was probably tending the flocks. Because he also wasn't there when they were plotting to kill him. He came in a little later and heard about it. So he wasn't, there when they were first talking about killing him.
Yeah.
So
So he must have something important to do.
yeah.
So Mike,
Yep.
okay, just some other background, just kind of one, as far as Joseph was, and we were kind of thinking like, okay, maybe he was kind of that bratty brother that always told on his brothers. I was just kind of thinking and pondering, and maybe, I mean, his brothers, I would strongly encourage everyone to read the Testament of the Patriarchs, because it does give a little bit of background. The way that they reacted towards Joseph was, I mean, it wasn't just, it was kind of unnatural, in my opinion, of how they hated him so much, because it just seems like there's more to the story. So I just pulled up a testament, I think it's Simeon, and he's speaking about Joseph. And essentially, he's just saying how guilty he felt as years went by because of what he had done to his brother. And apparently, he grieved more out of all of them. I just want to read something He's speaking. This is Simeon speaking to his children concerning Joseph, and it says, let me just see. It says, I am pained in my liver, for I mourned more than they all, because I was guilty of selling of Joseph. And when he went down into Egypt and he bound me as a spy, I knew that I was suffering. Wait, let me see. So he's talking to his children again. Take heed, therefore, my children, of all jealousy and envy, and walk in singleness of soul with a good heart, keeping in mind the brother of your father. He says, for even in sleep, some malicious jealousy, deluding, gnawing at the soul with wicked spirits, the mind to awake from sleep and confusion. Therefore, he says, Joseph was fair in appearance and goodly to look upon. And, oh, okay. It says, now, children, take heed of the spirit of deceit and envy. So that's really what was going on. These brothers were so jealous. It was almost like they were blinded by it. And later on in life, they come forward to teach their children, like, don't do what we did. And it says here, for envy rules over the whole minds of a man, and suffer him neither to eat nor to drink nor to do any good thing. And essentially what he's saying is that what he did to Joseph was very wicked, and it was just something that he was testifying to his children to stay far away from. So maybe there was more to the way that they treated and what was in their heart towards Joseph that caused them to do this horrible thing to him.
Yeah. And Simeon, I would think, was probably the most violent of all.
Right.
I'm sure he probably voted for death. Probably didn't have any problem doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's good. So that is the Testament of the Patriarchs. Is that what that is?
Yep, Testament of the Patriarchs, and I think you can read each individual testament. And
yeah, I think I've seen those before.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed by them. It just kind of fills in a lot of the things that maybe seem to be missing.
Right.
So
Okay.
wasn't Rachel was his favorite wife by far, which they
Yeah.
probably realized that, and so Joseph being her firstborn son would be the big deal for him.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, was Rachel also, as far as he was concerned, the covenant wife?
I would think so. Maybe in Jacob's eyes, I would think so.
Yeah. So they all knew that Joseph was getting the blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think by this point they probably knew that, and I think the code probably spoke of that.
Yeah.
It was a sign of royalty and a sign of basically set apartness, really. So now Rachel and Leah, as far as they're both called the mothers of Israel, so maybe in that respect they're, in the eyes of God, they're co-equal as matriarchs. I don't know, but I think Jacob definitely preferred Rachel. But at this point, Rachel is gone, so he's maybe once she's died, maybe he's investing more of his time in Joseph. The other brothers were out tending the sheep, and maybe Joseph reminded him of himself when he was younger. He wanted to stay amongst the tents and learn and all that kind of stuff. So okay, so anything else? There you go. Okay. Where were we? Verse 29. When Reuben returned to the pit, saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes, returned to his brothers and said, the boy is gone, and where shall I go? Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. And they sent the robe of many colors and brought it to their father and said, this we have found. Please identify whether it is your son's robe or not. It sounds like they're in a court of law. Like, do you recognize this article of clothing? And he identified it and said, it is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces. So it's amazing that the brothers can just bold-facedly lie to their father like this. And then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, no, I shall go down to Sheol to my son, mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him to Egypt, or in Egypt, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. So that's the first installment of the Joseph story. So the remainder of Genesis basically focuses on Joseph, but the next chapter deals with Judah and the two tribal leaders, or the two tribes that take prominence in the history of Israel, of course, are the tribe of Ephraim, which comes from Joseph, and the tribe of Judah. So this next chapter deals with Judah and Tamar. Does anybody have anything else on what we read there in Genesis 38, verse 37? If so, speak up. Otherwise, I'll just continue reading.
I'm glad Lisa mentioned this Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. I think that's the book. It's just, even like on a Google search, Wikipedia, a good point about the difference between Reuben and Joseph, which kind of, you guys are talking about that a little bit. Reuben, raped Bilhah, or at least had sexual intercourse with, concubine of his father. Whereas Joseph resisted Potiphar's wife,
Yeah.
So like he's kind of portrayed as the ideal for, how a man's supposed to act. Whereas Reuben, and that's probably why he lost his birthright too, as, he obviously gave into his lust. And so I think that's a really interesting point as the difference, and maybe why Reuben is so gut wrenched by what happened to Joseph,
You think it was
because
more of a
no doubt
selfish thing, or
he's probably, he let down his dad. It's a big deal. So I think that could be a reason too.
yeah. It would be interesting to read the Testament of Reuben. Lisa, have you read the Testament of Reuben?
No, I don't think so. I've only been like listening to it auditorially, so like when I'm cleaning the house. So
Oh, okay.
it's not like fully embedded, but a lot of it is very, very interesting. And yeah, I haven't for Reuben.
Okay. So Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, those are the three oldest sons, and all three of them have pretty much made a mess of things. Reuben losing his birthright by sleeping with Bilhah. Simeon and Levi were the two main instigators of the affair in Shechem, where the sons of Hamor were killed. So they're the three oldest sons. So Judah is the next, he's the fourth son. And in the story of the Israelite story, Judah does take precedence. They are not the birthright tribe, but they are the tribe or they will be the tribes through which the kingship comes through. So in verse 38, or chapter 38, verse 1, it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite whose name was Harah. So he's probably feeling pretty bad himself, and he wants to get away from home. So he goes off and hangs out with this friend of his, Hira. It says, there Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Er. So this woman, it doesn't even give her name, just calls her the daughter of a certain Canaanite named Shua. So I don't even know if he actually ever even married her. It doesn't say, it just says he went into her. But she ends up having 3 sons. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. Judah was in Chezib when she bore him. So she has these 3 sons. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. So the name Er, I was wondering if maybe looking at their names would give some kind of clue, but actually his name means watchful or to be awake. And then by implication, to be made bare or be made naked. So, but it is interesting that his name Er, which is Ayin Resh, if you reverse the letters, you have Resh Ayin, which is the word for evil, Ra. So that's something there, I don't know. But anyways, Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah put him to death. So we never really know what it is that he did that was so wicked, but and it's not the usual case where, because there's a lot of wicked people and not everybody is just put to death immediately, right? But this guy was, and there is some speculation as to what he did, which some of that speculation revolves around the fact that he didn't want to impregnate Tamar because she was very beautiful, and he didn't want to ruin her beauty by her becoming pregnant. So basically, it's a very selfish thing. And you have to remember, he was also, Judah had kind of drifted away from the faith, so to speak, and he has a Canaanite woman. We're not even sure if he's married to her. And he has this son, and, he's got Canaanite friends. So he's kind of like going off doing his own thing. So he doesn't have the upbringing that, the sons had when they were growing up, as far as learning about the ways of Yahuwah. So whatever it was that he did, it had to be pretty bad. Then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law and raise up offspring for your brother. And so we know of this precept later on. It shows up in the Levitical law. It's called a Levirate marriage, where a brother who dies with a wife who has no children, it's a requirement of the next brother to marry that woman, or at least, impregnate her so she has a son, so she can carry on the name of the father. So Jacob at least had this knowledge, and he's trying to impart this to his sons, who apparently, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the first time he's hearing about this, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. So Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. So this just wasn't a one-time thing, because it says whenever he went in. So it implies that there were multiple times where he had opportunity to impregnate Tamar, but he wouldn't do it. So whenever he went in, yeah, go ahead.
So I found a little something extra in the in the Testament of Judah.
Okay.
Regarding so maybe this will just kind of fill in some of the blanks. After these things, my son took to wife Tamar from Mesopotamia, a daughter of Aram. Now was wicked, and he doubted concerning Tamar, because she was not of the land of Canaan. And on the third day, an angel of the Lord smote him in the night, and he had not known her according to the evil craftiness of his mother, for he did not wish to have children from her. In the days of the wedding feast, I espoused Onan to her, and he also in wickedness knew her not, though he lived with her a year.
Okay. So he was given more of a chance.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. If she was from Aram, then she would have been, most of what I've read about her, people assume that she was just a Canaanite woman herself. I've never been so sure about that myself. I don't really know, but if she was in fact from Mesopotamia and Aram, that would have been back from the land, where their relatives were, right? That's where Rebecca came from. That's where Rachel and Leah came from. So that would make sense that she would be more of not a Canaanite woman, and in a sense, a relative, right?
Right.
Yeah. Because I've always wondered where do the brothers get their wives? Maybe they, went back and found women from their father's land. I don't know.
Well, so let me get this. I'm trying to understand this because I barely remember this story. I'm really glad you went into 38, Mike, because it's a really exciting chapter. And what I mean by that is this family's like, they could be on a Jerry Springer episode. You know what I mean? I mean, this stuff, this sexual stuff that's going on, it's like they're like a train wreck. And yet, and that's like encouraging for us, of course, right? So, because Yah always uses these types of people. He uses us. He uses these types of people, like it's like real human issues, problems, and the whole approach to sex is just wild as you read further on in 38. But Tamar, she is like through her line, Yeshua is there, right? So
yeah,
it's
she's
like,
in the line.
yeah, I mean, she's a critical part to this line, right? That leads to David and then Yeshua. And it just blows me away that Yahweh uses these people, right? That I guess it is very encouraging for us because they're like, if you look at it from outside in and you don't understand grace or redemption, like the stuff they're doing doesn't really seem redeemable. Like if you really just read it through, right? But it just blows me away that these are the exact people that, this is why I'm saved, So it's like, I don't know, I'm just really enjoying this particular chapter, even though it's, I never would want to model the behavior.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I've always wondered if maybe it's just a thought I've had concerning this situation, that Yahweh was protecting the line because he knew if that's why I always kind of struggle with the idea that she herself was a Canaanite woman. So according to Lisa there, possibly she wasn't. So he was trying to protect the line in that he kept her from and then he kept her from Onan. And, he was using the people who were far from perfect to to fulfill his plan, you know. So Onan, apparently he had several opportunities. What did you say, Lisa? He like lived with her for like a year. That's what they said.
Yeah, it looks like it says though he lived with her a year.
Yeah.
And Simeon goes on and says, and when I threatened him, he lay with her according to the command of his mother, and he also died in his wickedness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like he had more than one chance.
Yeah. So
So
bottom
Mike,
line is with these two brothers, they're just very both selfish. They were only just thinking of themselves. Go ahead. Somebody was saying
I was
something.
just going to say, so like you said, I just wanted to emphasize that as we look at scripture, anytime there's an existential threat to the seed line,
Yeah.
Yahweh doesn't wait around. He takes it out.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering why is this one wicked person being taken out and there's so many wicked people, well, it's because there was a threat to the seed line.
Oh,
And
wow.
Right.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
that can't be tolerated, just like Sodom was a threat to the seed line. It wasn't just that Sodom was was just a wicked city. They were an existential threat to the whole tribe.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so he took them out, and it's just that way all the way through. There's a line in the sand, and if you cross that line,
Yeah.
it's going to happen immediately.
Yeah. Plus this, the Israelite nation is just in its infancy, you know, and you don't want to start the guy who's the father of Judah, of the Yehudim, you know, you don't want to start right off the bat, you know, blowing it, I guess. Anyways, the name Onan has the meaning strong. Tamar, anybody guess what Tamar means? Anybody know? It means palm tree. So continuing on the story. So Onan is put to death. He did what was wicked in the sight of Yahuwah. He put him to death also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up, for he feared that he would die like his brothers. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. And once again, no name, just known as Shua's daughter. When Judah was comforted, so apparently this was his wife, it says the wife of Judah. So he went to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. And when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear the sheep, she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, come, let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. Now, you suppose this is part of her plan to pretend to be a prostitute? I don't know how she came up with this idea, but come, let me come into you, for he did not know it was his daughter-in-law. She said, what will you give me that you may come into me? He answered, I will send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, if you give me a pledge until you send it. He said, what pledge shall I give you? She replied, your signet, your cord, and your staff that is in your hand. So these are things that are basically, it's like handing over your wallet with all your credit cards and whatnot in it, or your watch and rings and everything. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away Taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the man of the place, "Where is the cult prostitute who was at Enaim at the roadside?" And they said, "No cult prostitute has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." Also, the men of the place said, "No cult prostitute has been here." And Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat and you did not find her." So he's willing basically to give up his identity rather than try and find this person because he doesn't want to be laughed at. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality." And Judah said, "Bring her out, let her be burned." She was being brought out. She sent word to her father-in-law, "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please identify who these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." So once again, we kind of have like a courtroom drama scene here. "Can you identify these items?" "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please identify these, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah identified them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son, Shelah, and she did not know, and he did not know her again." So this point it's a big turning point for Judah because he's been living a very callous kind of life up to this point. You know, he's moved away from his family, and you know, when he finds out his daughter-in-law has been immoral, I mean, the first thing he wants to do is burn her. You know, he really doesn't care about her. You know, he didn't even think to give. He had promised her that he would give his third son to her, and he didn't do that. And he realizes what he did, and he says, "She's more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son." So he realized the mistake he made, and the thing is that he did something which is pretty uncommon in the world, and that is taking accountability for your actions. So this is like a turning point for him because in the story, Yahuwah has to get his attention, right? He's got to, you know, knock some sense into this guy because he's just going down the wrong path. And so I think this kind of knocks him out of his slumber and and we'll see later in the story, in the Joseph story, how he's the one who of all the brothers kind of takes the lead. So this probably made a very big impact on him. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread around on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out, and she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore his name was called Peretz. And the name Peretz means a breach or breaking forth. So he was the one who reached out and pushed his brother aside, much like Esau did with Jacob, right? Afterward, his brother came out with a scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. And Zerah means a rising of light. And it sounds, when you pronounce it, Zerah, that's the same word as seed, but the spelling is a little different. Zerah, rising of light, is Zayin Resh Hey, and Zerah, the seed, is Zayin Resh Aleph. I believe it's Aleph. But anyways, just a slight different spelling, but the word itself sounds the same. So Peretz, he becomes the progenitor of the Davidic line. And I believe I had counted before how many, I think it's like 8 or so to David, or maybe from Abraham, 10 generations, I believe. Maybe it is 8. I had it written down somewhere. But I'm just looking through my notes here. And so we've talked about this before also, the word toldot. When we get to when the word toldot is first used in Genesis 2:4, there's 2 vavs in the word, and after that first time using, there one or the other vav is omitted, and in a couple cases both vavs, and it is with the name Peretz in Ruth 4:18, where both vavs are restored to the word toldot, and it's a symbol of the line being restored through the marriage of Ruth to Boaz. So Peretz is the son that the line comes through. He is also the firstborn son. So one of the few times the actual firstborn is actually giving the birthright. Zerah goes on. Now this idea with the thread is an interesting idea. There's lots of things written about it, who they are, that Zerah became believe the descendants of Zerah believing that they should be the rightful line of kingship, and that kind of idea. So it is believed that the Zerites did eventually make their way through Spain and then on up to Ireland. There is a city in Spain called Zaragoza, which possibly is named after the idea that, now this is just all speculation, but I've read about this, that Jeremiah took the daughters of, who was the last king of Israel or Judah? I forget his name. Zedekiah, yeah. So took the daughter and took her to Ireland, and she got married to the line of Zerah, the king at the time. This would have been like many years later. And that's how the 2 lines came back together. So I don't know if that's true. I've read about it, but it's an interesting story. Anyways, that's about it for now. Any questions, comments, answers? Whoops.
Yeah, First Chronicles 2 has the breakdown. If you wanted to see how the sons of Perez, sons of Zerah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
goes all the way down to Ram, and then Ram had Nashon, Salmon, who Salmon's the father of Boaz, right? So
Right.
Obed, Jesse, David. Yeah, it's pretty. That Chronicles was pretty cool. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a listing, so I never just read it for fun. But
So in
the
that
list
line
is
from
really helpful.
yeah, from that line from Tamar, Tamar is one of 4 women who are noted in the line of Yeshua.
Yeah, see,
Tamar, Rahab, who actually got married to Solomon, and then Ruth, who was married to Boaz, and the 4th one, I think it's Bathsheba, if I'm not mistaken. So whether these Zerahite, I don't know. I mean, they are noted in Nehemiah 11:24, and also Joshua 7:1. Let's see what that says. The people of Israel broke faith in regard to devoted things for Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, the tribe of Judah. So, yeah, this guy Achan, who took the devoted things, he was from the line of Zerah. And then Nehemiah 11:24. And Pethahiah, son of Mishazabel, sons of Zerah, son of Judah, was at the king's side in all matters concerning the people. So they were, this was in, would have been the Persians, I guess. It would have been one of the king's aides. So this is another place where Zerah shows up. Anyways, so we can close there. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to comment on? Lisa, do you have any more? I see Bud's here. Bud, how you doing, Bud? Gwen, iPhone, Jess and Ryan. Hey, Ryan. And Jess. Okay, well, I'll close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the story as we look into the lives of these patriarchs. Father, there's just so much to learn and glean from all this. And we just thank you so much for the reading of your word and for talking about it. Thank you for all the comments and everyone pitching in. Thank you. Pray all this in Yeshua's name. Amen.